You go to their website and just download whichever operating system you're on. In my case, it's a Mac, so I'll just download that. And once it's downloaded, I can just unzip it, open it up. From here, we can just open Visual Studio Code, and there we have it, nice and easy. Now, the reason a lot of people like Visual Studio Code is that it's free. Unlike Sublime Text that allows you to, well, still use it for free, but every once in a while you get an annoying pop-up to purchase the full subscription. Visual Studio Code actually has really, really nice plugins and tools to make developing better. Personally, I like Sublime Text just because it is nice and simple and clean. I find Visual Studio Code can get noisy, although you can change things around. But let me show you how I would set up Visual Studio Code. First, well, we can just create a new file, and let's create a new JavaScript. First, well, we can just create a new file, and let's create a new JavaScript. Things about VS Code, and let's make this a little bit bigger. If I create an object here, let's say object, and this will have name of Sally. If I go object dot, oops, that's not what I wanted, object dot, you see that I get auto suggestions from VS Code. I didn't have to install any plugins, nothing at all, but it detects what this object has as a property, and it auto-completes for us. And underneath the hood, it's using something called IntelliSense, and they give you a ton of suggestions when you're typing, as you can see here. For example, if I type in the window object, I see all the methods and properties that I can access, which is really, really nice, and people really like this. And if I make any mistakes in my code, you see that I get that underlined in red saying, hey, there's something wrong here. So that's really, really nice. And it has a few more options. It has a debug feature that is really nice. It also integrates with GitHub and source control. My favorite feature is we can actually open up the terminal in here. You see that I have my terminal right in my code editor, which is really, really nice. You don't have to switch between the screens like I do when I use Sublime Text and iTerm. Although I actually like that, some people prefer having everything in just one go. Now, if I was using VS Code, there's two plugins that I really recommend. And if I go to File over here, or let's go to Code, Preferences, and then do Extensions, there's a ton of extension here, just like Sublime Text. And one of my favorites that I like using with VS Code is Quokka. And I'll show you what it does in a second. I'm going to install this, and I've actually already installed it, so I don't have to click anything here. In your case, you might have to click Install. It'll install it for you. And once it's installed, I can do something fun. I can do Command-Shift-P, or if you're using Windows, it might be Control-Shift-P. And it's going to display the editor's command palette, which again works the same in Sublime Text. And if I type in Quokka here, you see the list of commands that I can use. And most likely in your case, you want to start a new JavaScript file. So if I do this, check out what happens now. If I create an object, let's say object, and I start typing, let's say name, you see that it's actually evaluating the script and giving me an error. So name is not defined. If I do name is Sally, all right, everything is good. And if I start typing things like Sally.hi, I'll say Sally is not defined, and it actually evaluates what we're writing, which is really, really neat. And I can just have Quokka evaluate what I'm currently writing. And look at that. I see that object has name Sally. Very, very cool. So that's a really, really fun plugin. Another one that I really like. And no, we don't need to save that. Another one that I really like, and probably the only other one that I would add, is the indentificator. And again, I have that already installed. The nice thing with the indentificator is, if you notice here, I have these lines. Let's have another object within an object. You see that these lines are being highlighted here, showing me where I am in the code block, which I find very useful. And then finally, just like with Sublime Text, you can change the theme that you have. So if you go to color theme, for example, you have a few default ones and a few others that you can just install. So I actually installed Neagoie, which is one of my favorites. You can see that you can download different themes and customize it to your liking. That's enough about VS Code. Everybody has their own favorite code editor. There's no right one for web development. You just pick the tool that you find yourself liking the most and you find you work the best with. Some people like a lot of plugins. Some people like the simplicity of Sublime Text. It's all up to you. Just customize it however you want, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what code editor you use. But if I had to recommend two, definitely Sublime Text or VS Code. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. In this video, we're going to set up our terminal to look nice along our newly set up Sublime Text. As you know, the terminal is just a text-based way to communicate with the computer instead of the graphical user interface that we normally use. As developers, you will spend a lot of time with the terminal, especially as you become more and more senior in your role. So let's make it better. If we open up the terminal, I have it open already for myself, you see that we have the word bash here. Bash is a type of shell that a terminal can have. And what do I mean by that? Well, just as the name suggests, it's just the casing around the terminal that is customizable. There's actually more than one shell. Bash is just one of them. One of my favorites are OhmyZSH, there's the fish shell, and they all have different things that you can do with them, but it's just another way to customize your workstation. Before I get into that, let's just customize our bash. The way we do that is we can first start off with getting something other than just having this to the left. The way we do that is we type in nano, which is a text editor, and then we do squiggly line /bash_profile. And here what we open is a file that is the bash profile. So this is what our profile will look like. This file gets read every time we open up the terminal. In here, we can put in a bunch of things that we want our terminal to do. One of the cool things that I really think is fun is updating your PS1 variable. And I'll link to this website. And there's a bunch of examples here that we can use. Let's just pick one that, like this one over here, all we do is copy and paste this. And within our bash profile, we can just copy and paste. And as you can see, our PS1 now equals a whole bunch of gibberish that we don't really need to worry about. We see over here that to exit, we need to do Control X, then save modify, we just press Y, and then press enter. Okay, nothing happens, but the way we fix that is we now do source, and then bash profile. It essentially reloads our profile now. And look at that. We now have a cool little prompt to the left. So you can set up your PS1 to display whatever you want. If you want your current directory to display, that's great. If you want your username to display, that's good as well. You can set up in a ton of ways. The other thing that the terminal lets you do, if you click on something like edit background color, you'll get a few things that you can change in your shell. You can change your color based on what you want. And if I bring this over here, you can also click on the profile, and actually it gives you a bunch of pre-built ones. That look really cool. Let's do Pro, actually. Very nice. Again, you can customize this as well. And as I mentioned, a different operating system, you have your own ways to customize it. But every single one usually has a profile and a way to modify what gets displayed based on your needs. Now, the one that I really, really like is a shell that's different than Bash. And I've used this one before, which is really, really good. It has a ton of themes that you can use. They have a bunch of options and you can play through them. The one that I really like is the fish shell. It's very simple. It has all the operating systems on it. And I install it using Homebrew. For those on a Mac, Homebrew is a way to install anything from the web. So instead of me going to a website and installing something, I can use a command line to download things. If you go to the Homebrew website, brew.sh, you can actually just copy this link into your terminal, copy and paste it, press enter, and it will install Homebrew for you. I already have this installed, so I'll just exit that. The way I install fish, you can see over here, all I have to do is say brew, install fish. And while this is happening, I want to show you another option. So we have the terminal over here, but iTerm, which again is specific for Mac, is really, really nice, and it's way more customizable than the terminal. So I prefer using iTerm 2. If I open this and double click, and look at that. This looks way nicer already. So let's just compare them side by side. I have my, let's make that a little bit bigger. I have the bash shell here, and I have the fish shell here. Although they both are in the desktop right now, they're running on different shells. The fish shell has, just like we have with the bash profile, has its own profile. So you can set it up. And you can set up which one gets activated when you first open up the terminal or iTerm. What I recommend is to set up your workstation in a way that's nice to you. My preferred way is to use iTerm and the fish shell. But if you want to use bash, that's great. The beauty here is that if I type in bash, I get taken to the bash profile, and if I type in fish, I get back to fish. iTerm also lets you just customize everything really nicely. If I go to preferences, you'll see here that I have appearance, profiles, where we can have colors set up. And there's a ton more you can do with your terminal that I won't get into this video because everybody has their own way of doing things. I just wanted to show you a basic setup so that now you have a nice environment that you can work in. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. And while this is happening, I want to show you another option. So we have the terminal over here, but iTerm, which again is specific for Mac, is I see that. Yeah, Andrei just changed. In this video, we're going to talk about Git and GitHub and source control. Now you might remember GitHub from our previous section where we used it to put the website online, but I'll show you that it is so much more than that. More importantly, Git and GitHub is used by most professional companies, and it is a skill that is expected to be known by all developers now. So this is an important section. One of the first things most developers have to do on their first day of the job is to submit something called a pull request, which uses Git and GitHub. We'll get through that in this section. Don't worry. You're going to learn all of this, and it's going to make sense. Let's first start with source control. Up until now, we have only worked on small files. No team members, just ourselves, just a couple of files. But in real life, you're most likely not the only developer on a team. Most likely the projects are huge. There's many, many files. Source control allows us to make sure that multiple people can work on the same file from different locations. Think of it as Google Docs that allows people to collaborate on one document. But enough talk, let's actually check it out. I have over here set up 2 folders. One is for myself, Andrei, who just started a new job at X company. And I have Marcy here, who has been working at the company for a while, and she has project files over here. I'm actually using the files from our background generator video. Now, without Git or GitHub, what I can do is just copy and paste these files. So I have whatever Marcy has, and we can start working on these files. I can have my developer environment here with my terminal and my Sublime text, and I can work on whatever changes that need to be made on the app. And Marcy, over here, also has her own version where she can work on it, and we're both working on the same project. But let's say that both Marcy and I are working on this project, and she decides to change the project name from gradient background to super background. And at the same time, in my project, I decide to call this cool background. Well, now you'll have to set up a meeting between myself and Marcy and decide how we should change the code. And this is a small example, but you can imagine that as different programmers work together, there's always going to be this issue of one person changing one thing and another person changing another thing. This is where source control came in. And source control is a way to control this, where we have one place instead of our own computers. In this case, it's just represented by the folder that I have in here. Instead of each of us having a copy of the project, with source control, we have a copy of the project, but there is a centralized location up somewhere, maybe owned by the company or somewhere on the internet, that has the ultimate version that we each talk to make sure that we each have the same version. Git and GitHub is a way to do this, to be able to use source control. And as a matter of fact, it's the de facto way of doing this. So like I said before, this is most likely the tool you'll be using every single day at your workplace. So if I go to the GitHub website here, what it allows us to do is it's a central place that both Andrei and Marcy can talk to. So even though we work on the same files, the same project, I can ask this central location, such as GitHub, hey, has Marcy made any changes? And Marcy can ask, hey, has Andrei made any changes? And every once in a while, you'll get something like this, where we have cool background and super background, where we have something called a merge conflict. What GitHub allows us to do is say, hey, I noticed there's a merge conflict. I see that you guys have both changed your background. I don't know who's right, but here's the information. Andrei and Marcy, can you guys talk amongst yourself and figure it out? That's pretty much the workflow. So let's actually see what this looks like. The first thing we want to do is set up a GitHub account. If you haven't done it in the previous exercises, you absolutely should start a GitHub account. It's free. And like I said before, if you're a developer, you just need to have it. It's where everybody puts their projects. It's where you work. You'll be spending a lot of time on this website. You might remember that when we had the GitHub project, I also told you to get GitHub for desktop. Although we use that to make things simpler during that video, this is actually not the recommended way of doing it. It allows you to visually see and interact with GitHub, but it's kind of looked down upon by employers, and most people use the terminal or the command prompt to actually do this. So I won't be teaching you this way just because I think it's bad practice, and getting used to the terminal is important. I'm going to close that, and we're going to get this started. The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on Start a Project. And here we're going to call it whatever we want. We'll call it Background Generator. And you also want to leave it as public, and we want to click on Initialize this with a README, and we'll click Create Repository. And what that does, well, we've created a new project on GitHub, and here, the README, which is just a file that describes your project, you can see that it's here. We can type into the README whatever we want, and it'll describe our project. But let's go back. If Marcy, let's say Marcy has been working at this company for a long time. I'm actually going to remove my files here. Marcy has been working at this company for a long time, and the employer finally decided, hey, we need to use GitHub. We're going to hire this new guy, Andrei. We want to make sure that you both can work on it, on the project together without any issues. Can you put the project up on GitHub? So what Marcy will do is she will go to GitHub, create background generator, and then she's going to click right over here to clone or download. And she's going to make sure it says use HTTPS. And from here, you just click on this button, which copies this link to your keyboard. Then Marcy goes to her terminal. And right now we're in Documents. We want to have the project in the Marcy folder. So I'll cd into Marcy. If I click ls, I see that, yep, I have my files. Now, the first command that we're going to learn is called git clone, and then copy and paste what we copy from the website. We're just saying, hey, clone this project from github.com. So I press enter, and there you go. Everything is downloaded. If I go back to the folder now, I see that I have background generator. If I double click this, you'll see that I have a .git folder here that's actually hidden. You might not even see it on your laptop if you don't have this feature on your computer enabled. But this .git now allows me to communicate with GitHub. So what we can do now, Marcy can copy and paste these files and put it into background generator. Now let me show you the next git command. Marcy right now, if we see, she's in her folder, but now we need to go into background generator, because if we do any git commands here, well, it won't work because it's not a Git project. We need to actually go inside of the project that was created on GitHub. So I'm going to cd into that directory. Notice here, I have my terminal set so that it actually shows me what GitHub location I'm in, and I'll explain what master means later. Now that we're here, we can look at all our files. Yep, I see that now I have my README, which I created on GitHub, plus the files that I copy and pasted. We need to sync this so that if I go into my background generator, instead of the README files, Marcy can put up her files on GitHub. The way we do that is our second command, git status. It tells us that we have on-track files. That is, we have index.html, script.js, and style that are on track. And it says use git add file to include what will be committed. So now that we see our status of what we have in our folder, we can say git add and the file name. So I can do index.html, git add script.js, and git add style.css. Let's clear this so we can see it. And now I can do git status again, just to see what our status is. And now I have your branch is up to date, changes to be committed. You see that now with add, we've said, hey, we want to add these changes. We have new files that we've added and says to be committed. So the second step is to do something called git commit. And git commit says, hey, I'm committing that these are the changes that I want to make to GitHub. And it allows you to pass a message so that on GitHub, it'll show the message. When Andrei comes back in, he can say, oh, Marcy added these files and this is the message. And we do that by doing this. And within here, within the double quotes, I can say adding, starting project. Close the bracket, press enter. I'm going to clear this. Now there's one last step. We did git add to add our changes, then git commit to commit and say, yeah, we're locking in those changes. And then finally, we need to let github.com know that these are the changes. So we do git push. And there you go. It has now been pushed to this repository. So if I go back and I refresh, look at that. It's the same thing that we did when we put up our first website online, but instead of using the desktop version of GitHub, we use the command line. And now we have our project, which is very good. Now let's go back to our example. So Marcy has been working on this project. There's a Git repository, and I just joined the company, and now I need to start working on this. What do I do? Now I need to access GitHub and get the copy of background generator. The way I do that, well, I go into my folder, and I do the same thing. I do git clone, and then I copy and paste the repository, just like before. Git clone, and clone the repo. And there you go. If I go back to my folder, look at that. I have background generator. So we're both working now on background generator, but not off of each other's files. We're working with whatever version is on GitHub. All right, so now more realistic. We go back to working, and on the first day of my job, I say, I'm going to change the gradient background title, actually the h1 tag, to cool generator. If I save this and I do git status, oh, well, I'm not in a Git repository right now. If you remember, I have to go into background generator. Let me open that up a bit so you can see. There you go. Again, these Git commands won't work if you're not in a folder that has the .git folder. So let me do that. CD into background generator. I'm going to clear this, and I'm going to say git status. And look at that. It tells me that I've modified index.html file. And if we remember, I will say git add. I only have one file. I can do index.html. But if I had multiple files and I want to just commit all of them at once, I can just do the period. So I'll do that, and then git commit, and I'll add a message changing title. I press enter, and I clear this. Okay, and again, I do git push, and it looks like everything went through. So let's open that up and check it out. I now refresh here, and well, we haven't seen any changes, but we now see that we have 3 commits. We have the initial commit, the adding background project that Marcy did, and it shows you all the files that were added. And if I go back, I have the changing title commit. And now I see that, yeah, Andrei just changed the background generator, which is in red, to cool generator. So as you can see, we have a history of all the changes, and we can always go back if there's any mistakes. But there's one issue right now. If I go back to the code and I go to Marcy's computer, I see that, well, she still has background generator here. Why is that? Well, because her computer doesn't know that GitHub has been updated. The next command I'm going to show you, this is the last one I'm going to show you in this video, is git pull. So remember, git push to push the changes to github.com, and git pull to pull whatever's the latest. So I do git pull, and there you go. You see over here that it shows me that index.html file was changed. Now you see that my title has been changed to cool generator. Let's just say that Marcy saw my first change, and she really, really likes how I've added cool generator, but I think she wants to make it capitalized. Again, she's going to save that. She's going to say git status. All right, I have my index.html file, git add, then git commit, and I'll have the message capitalize title, and then git push. There you go. Again, I go back, I refresh, and now there's 4 commits, and we see that capitalized title is the new changes. The first day of work is done. I come into the next day of work, and well, I want to start with whatever the latest project is of background generator. And let's say Marcy worked all night to change that title to cool capitalized. I want to make sure that I have the most updated version. So what I do is when I get into work in the morning, I'll say, well, I want to make sure that if there's any changes that Marcy made, I know about them. So I'm going to say git pull, and notice here how the title's going to change after I do the pull. And now I click the sublime text, and there you go, cool generator. All right, in the next video, we're going to expand on this and show you what happens if both Marcy and Andrei make the same changes. What does GitHub do? I'll see you in that one. Welcome back. Let's continue from our previous video to talk about a more advanced workflow in Git and GitHub. Now, up to this point, both Marcy and I have just been working on, over here, branch master. What does that mean? Well, it says branches, but I only see master here. And you might have noticed one issue with the way that we were doing things. That is, if it's my first day on the job, and I just changed the title, but maybe we didn't even want that change. Maybe that breaks our branding or breaks our app. But I was able to do it so easily to change it into master. Maybe Marcy didn't even know that I've added that change. And that's a big problem, right? You don't want to put things into what we call production, into what the user sees, if it's going to break our website. If you're a big company like Facebook, that could mean millions of dollars in lost revenue, even if you have a bug that lasts a few hours. So I'm going to show you a more realistic workflow that you'll have, and that is with branching. Let me show you what I mean. I have over here a visual of what Git is really, really good at. Up until now, we've been working on what we call master. That is the master branch. Think of the master branch as the authority. This is the right way that our app or our website should look. And up until now, when I added the cool background title, well, I went from background generator to cool generator. And then when Marcy changed it to capitalized letters, then we went to here. And we just went in a linear fashion from one end to the other, to the other, to the other. But like I said, that is a bit of a problem. So a better thing to do is what we call branching. If I wanted to change the title, I will create a branch and just call it little feature, for example. And I just work on that branch on my own without affecting the master branch, what the user sees. And only when it's finished, when Marcy has reviewed it, when we have tested it and everybody on the team's okay, then we bring it back into master. And you can see over here with the big feature, you can keep going for a long time on your own branch. And only when you're done, do what we call merge into master. I'm going to show you how that works today. I'm going to close this and remember our example. We have Marcy's computer here with all the files, and we have my computer here with all the files. We both have our workstation set up. And now you see what master in my terminal means. And I'll show you in the notes afterwards how you can have this set up so it tells you what branch you're on. But we can see that we're both on master. That's my computer. And Marcy's computer is also on master. We want to make sure that we're both up to date with the latest GitHub. So Marcy's going to do git pull, and I'm also going to do git pull. And let's say that I'm now working on a new feature. And because it's a better workflow not to work on master, and this is a good tip generally, don't work on master, always branch off. If I do git branch, it'll show me that, well, I only have one branch, and that is master. But we can add to it. We can say git branch new or little feature. And now if I do git branch, I see that I have little feature, but master is highlighted because I'm currently on master. So the way I would go to the little feature branch, I'll say git checkout little feature. And there you go, switch to branch little feature. And now I'm on little feature branch. So what I've done is I've branched off of master and now created little feature. Let's create a bit of a change. I'm going to say in the little feature, we're going to change the current CSS background title to say, this is the background. I'm going to save here. And again, I do my simple workflow that we did in the last video, git status. I see that, yep, we have the index.html change. I'm going to clear so we can see. So now that we've made this change, let's do git add And again, just git status to make sure everything went through. Yeah, we're ready to commit index.html. So we'll do git commit message will be changing text. Perfect. Let's clear that. And now, again, in order to let GitHub know all the changes, we need to do git push. So we'll do git push. All right. Let's go to GitHub and see what happened. We see that now we have this yellow bar that just showed up and says you recently pushed branches. So if I click on this green button here, compare pull request, it shows me what changes I have, which is I've changed the title. And here I can let Marcy know, saying, Marcy, I've changed the text. What do you think? And I click on create pull request. And now I have my PR. And you see here how it says merge pull request. Well, if we go back to our diagram, I've created this little feature. And now I'm saying, hey, Marcy, I've just done this new change. What do you think? Is it okay for me to merge it into master? And what will happen here most likely is Marcy will come, see this pull request. You can see that we're on the pull request tabs. So she'll be able to see them and see, oh, Andrei just did this change. She'll look through the changes and she'll say, well, if she likes this, she could be like, looks good. She can click on start a review. And you know what? She likes this, so she's just going to approve. Now, Marcy or myself, usually you don't want to merge your own pull request. Somebody on the team does it. And now just say merge pull request. Confirm merge. And there you go. Some teams like deleting the branch afterwards, so you can just click delete here. If I go back to the code, well, I don't have the branches anymore because I just deleted it. But in my master, if I go to index.html, I see this is the background. So now Marcy can go to her project and say git pull. And again, she has the latest update. Now let's talk about some conflicts that can arise. Now let's say Marcy wants to change something, and I also change the same thing, and we get a merge conflict. Let's see what happens. So let's say Marcy wants to create a new feature saying, we'll call this one big feature. And she'll say git checkout or git branch big feature. She'll say git checkout big feature. And if I do git branch, we see that, yep, there's a new branch here. Let's clear that. And she'll say here that she wants to change this back to background color or background generator because all the users are complaining that the title changed and they like the old title. So she's changed that. She has done the git add, git commit, reverting back to old title. Perfect. And then she's going to do git push. Oh, let's clear that first actually. And we do git push. The first time you get this, you might get this error saying that there's no upstream. You just copy the code that they give you here. Perfect. Now if I go back, the background generator, I see the big feature pull request over here. And just to show you that you can have multiple commits, let's say Marcy decides to, oh, this is me. Marcy decides to add an exclamation point here. She can just say again, she saves this. That's clear. And she'll say git add, git commit. You do this a lot, so you'll get really, really good at Git after working in the company for a while. And she'll say added exclamation. Oops, that's not what I want to do. Git commit, commit, added exclamation, and she'll do git push again. And let's go back to GitHub. If we look at the pull request, it'll actually have both of these, reverting back to old title and added exclamation. And we see over here both of the changes. Create the pull request, needs changes, Andrei. So while this pull request is out there, I decided to start a new branch called, let's just call it conflict for now. And I'll do git checkout conflict. And now in the conflict branch, I decide to change this to just completely remove the pull generator. I save that. Again, I check my status and index.html file has been changed. So while this is happening, I get Marcy to merge the pull request. So she's entered it into master. Her pull request is in. And now if I go back to my conflict and I do git status, and we have to add these, so git add, then git commit. I'll just do a short message here, just check. And now if I go back to master, I have to do git checkout master. Again, before I push my changes, I want to make sure that I have the latest version of master, so I'm not changing anything or I won't have any conflicts. So I'll do git pull to get the latest. And now I go to git checkout conflict branch. And I can do this command, git merge master. So I'm saying merge whatever's in master into conflict. Marcy has been working on the big feature and she's merged it. So now master has the big feature branch. But I've also created another branch and I've been working on my own on the conflict branch. And the conflict branch doesn't know anything about master. So I'm saying, hey, whatever's in master right now, which includes the big feature that Marcy worked on, pull it in and make sure that there's no conflicts. So I do that. And oh, I get conflict, merge conflict in index.html file. Now, if I actually click on Sublime Text, let me open this up so you can see it better. Oh boy, I get this weird little syntax. It's overwhelming at first, but it's easy to see what happened. Head is where my branch is at, and it shows me that here to the end, I don't have the H1 anymore, but in the master branch, we have background generator. Now I can talk to Marcy and say, hey, Marcy, do you want to keep the background generator title? And she'll say, yes, that was the right thing to do. Don't change the background. Well, in that case, I just remove these lines and remove this and save now. If I do git status now, okay, we have the modified status here. Let me just make this smaller again so you can see. So let me clear this. What we do now is we have to do git add, again, because we made those changes. And we have to do git commit, fixing merge issue. And I forgot the M. Let's try that again. M, conflict, fixing merge issue. Let's clear here and do git status. Nothing to commit, working tree clean. And if I do git push, well, again, I get this error, but I want to show you this time around. If I do git push origin conflict, it now works. Let's go back to GitHub, see what sort of things we have. We have the conflict branch. And if we look at the conflict branch now, well, there's nothing changed because, well, I just reverted all my changes, so it's completely empty. There's no changes now, so Marcy will be like, hey, did you mean to make this PR? It's empty. So I'll see this message on my PR, and I can keep going. And that's pretty much the workflow that you'll see in Git. I'll leave the commands for you after this, but you see, it's very, very nice to work with. You learn a few commands, and as long as you have this visual model of every time you're working on something, you always create a branch, you title it with whatever feature you're working on, and every once in a while, you want to pull master and merge master into your branch to make sure that you're not missing out on any updates that other developers or teammates have done. Once you're done with your feature, you make a pull request by doing git push, and that pull request, you'll add comments and people will review your file changes. And if they want you to make a few changes, then you can do again git add, git commit, finally make your changes, and then you can merge pull request. And once that's done, then everybody else on the team, there's now a new master, so everybody else on the team should do git pull as well. It does take a bit of time to get used to, but it's a really, really nice workflow to make sure that everybody on the team works on the same files, same projects, without causing any errors and making sure that everybody collaborates well. And that's it. Hope you found this useful. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. I've branched off of master and now created. I do my simple workflow that we did in the last video. Git. We have the index.html. Push again. So I'll an index.html file. Now, if I actually click issue, in this video, we're going to talk about how to contribute to open source and actually take you through the steps. But first, for those who don't know, what is open source? Well, a lot of technology that has been created on the internet that we know today has been built on top of open source projects. And open source projects means that anybody can view the code. Anybody can see the code of a program, can inspect it, can modify it, can enhance it. In this way, the idea is that by sharing this information with everybody, we get everybody's input and we use the collective mind to improve software. Not only that, but it also benefits everybody, right? For example, the most famous example of an open source project is Linux, an operating system just like Windows or Mac OS, except it's built by everyday programmers. And it's code that is completely open sourced. Anybody can inspect the code, add onto it, and it's become so successful that most of the cloud that we know of, the servers usually run Linux. AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, all of them use Linux. Some of you might be running Linux right now as you watch this video. So not only do you get to work with other developers from around the world, where you can build great projects, but just working in teams, by learning how open source works, well, you don't have to create something as big as Linux. You can create a project with a friend, something very small and simple. It doesn't really matter. The idea is of collaboration, of openness and sharing code to hopefully improve on the collective knowledge. Finally, a lot of employers actually look upon open source contribution as a plus. So if you're able to put in your resume that you're an open source contributor, well, that's a good sign. Plus, it teaches you valuable skills using Git and GitHub to work in teams. If you're looking for job experience but you don't have a job, contributing to open source is the perfect way for you to learn how to work in teams and mimic a work-like scenario. This is a really important video and something I'm really excited about. So let's show you how to make your first open source contribution. Improve your resume, learn some real-life skills, and have fun along the way. Now, we've actually created some open source projects for you for this course. We have the Zero to Mastery repository here, where we can see that we have about 64 projects open right now with about 2,000 contributors. That's a lot of people, and this number is bound to increase. Now, this place was created as a practice ground for you, a playground. Nobody will yell at you if you break things. You can contribute, add silly things, whatever you want. It's a testing ground. The idea is to have as much fun as possible and make it as easy as possible to contribute to open source. Now, within that organization, we have a great community of administrator or management team that will help you with these open source projects. By the way, who are these administrators? They're right here. Ignore my name. I help out as well, but they do a lot of the heavy lifting. And they are past students, just like you, that have had a bit of experience now. Most of them are working full-time, but they are now helping out the community by helping with our open source projects, our Discord, and generally just helping our community grow. So shout out to them. If you get a chance, say hi to them on Discord. They definitely do a lot for this community. They're very active on Discord, and they really help maintain all of our open source projects. So let's learn how to make our very first open source contribution. I do want to note here that this isn't the only way for you to contribute to open source. This is just a playground that we've created for you. But once you contribute here, you can go off and contribute to all the other open source projects all over GitHub that you can find. You can contribute to projects like React and Angular. The world is your oyster. Or you can just stick to these, as we actually have a ton of projects here that are fun. We have events going on like Hacktoberfest. Well, we'll get to that shortly. We definitely have a great community of developers, and we can create some awesome projects together. Now, the way you want to get started is to first go to the Start Here guidelines. Now, in the Start Here guidelines, and I'll link to this page, you actually have a 4-step guide to get started. The first thing you want to do is to actually watch the Get Started guideline. A fellow student actually created this guide for you to follow the steps that I'll mention in this video. So you always have this as a reference. So after this video, definitely check out this document as a reference. But otherwise, once you've browsed through the document, make your first pull request. So if you've already watched my Git and GitHub videos, you should be all set. Otherwise, hopefully you're familiar with Git and GitHub. Now, the first thing we want to do is to actually add our names to the contributors.md file in this project. So if you go up, you'll see that we have a contributors.md, which stands for markdown file. And if I click on here, you see that all the contributors that we have over 1,000 contributors. And if you scroll down, these are all their GitHub names. So your first task is to actually add your name to this list. So how can we do this? Well, we can just clone this repository, but a more recommended way of usually contributing to open source is to fork the project. Fork essentially means copy over the entire project and put it on your own GitHub profile. So if I click fork here, And we see over here that you can select where you want to fork the project and you want to select your profile. So once we fork this project, we make a copy of it. It's like we own this repository now with our own version of the Start Here guidelines. So once we have this, we can clone this repository using SSH or HTTPS, whatever you prefer. In my case, I'll use SSH so that I don't have to use my password every time. I can now say git clone and clone this repository. Now we can cd into Start Here guidelines, and we can open this up in our favorite text editor. Now, once here, let's clear this. We have the contributors file, which we need to add our name to. Now, I can see here the contributors file is getting quite long because, well, we've got a lot of students who are contributing to open source. But at the very end, make sure you're at the very end here, you want to add your own name. Now, here's the thing. Right now, we're on the master branch, but I'm going to show you what a good practice is. We have our forked project, and we want to create a new branch to work off of instead of master by saying git checkout-b to create a new branch. And we want to name this branch. In our case, let's just name it test. If I hit enter, you'll see that now I'm on a new branch called test. And in this branch, I can add my name to this contributor list. In your case, you'll want to use your own GitHub profile. So we're using Markdown here, which is a syntax to write and have some functionality. For example, if we go to the contributors list, you'll notice that they are all clickable links. So we essentially use the same notation. We do a dash, square brackets with your GitHub username. And then in the parentheses, we just have the actual URL that you want to link to. In our case, the GitHub username that you have. So your GitHub username here, GitHub username here. Once we do that, we can save this file and now go back to our terminal and say git status. And we see here that, yeah, we've just modified our contributors.md file. And if I do git diff to see any changes that we've made, we see that we've added this new line. So let's clear this. We have our name all set up, and we can now add this commit by saying git add and dot for everything. We'll add everything, and then git commit, and we'll write a message that says added my name to contributor list. There we go. So now it's time for us to push these changes. Now if I do git push origin master, well, right now what that would mean is that we want to push to origin, and the origin is this Start Here guideline, which I forked. So the origin is actually my version of the project. And if I want to push to master, that is the main branch. But we don't want to do that because ideally, we want to be able to also change and add our name to the original Zero to Mastery Start Here guideline because this is the main project. So what we can do is instead of master, push to our test branch. So we say git push origin test. There we go. Now, if I go back here and go to my project and I refresh, I now have two branches, the master branch and also the test branch, which I just updated. So one way to do this is to click on new pull request. And you can add comments here, like I've added my name to the list, and you can tag some of our maintainers. In my case, I'll just tag myself. If I do create pull request, I now have my pull request. And notice here how my pull request is now at the Zero to Mastery Start Here guideline. So that if I go back to our Start Here guideline, I see that I'm part of the pull request now, right here. And because I've tagged one of the management teams, so in this case, it was myself, or you can tag any of the management team that we have. Now, in this case, I'm cheating because I also help manage this. So I can just myself merge the pull request. Most likely in your case, you won't be able to merge it yourself. But if I click merge and confirm, there we go. I've merged my project. I've deleted the branch and the pull request is closed. If I want, I can even delete my own fork. But for now, let's keep it the way it is. Let's check the Start Here guidelines and see if my name has been added to the list. If I scroll all the way down, hey, check that out. There's my name on the list. So I've been added to the contributors list. That was pretty easy, right? And the cool part is that now if I go to my profile, I actually have Zero to Mastery as one of my organizations. So if you're able to add yourself to the contributors list, you can actually join the Zero to Mastery organization and have this little icon appear on your GitHub profile. And lots of GitHub profiles have organizations, so people usually have their workplace icon in here. So just a nice little thing to have on your profile to show that you're involved in the programming community. So we've just made a pull request, which was step 2, and that was pretty fast, right? Finally, the next step is to go join an actual project and start contributing the way we just learned in our Zero to Mastery organization. Now, there's actually a guide that we provided for you to figure out what project you choose, what's going to be good for you. We also have in our Discord a group projects section where we can look at some of the current projects that are happening, or you can just go to the Zero to Mastery organization and pick any of the repositories to contribute to. Now, in the next video, we're going to contribute to one of these projects and show you a real life scenario. I'll see you in that one.